Hey there, I'm Paul Kaltenbach, live in Hell's Kitchen, New York City. And you're tuned to International Radio Report, 30 minutes of news about radio on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome, everybody, to the International Radio Report for Sunday, December the 29th, 2024, our last show of the year. We hope you had a good Christmas holiday and looking forward to New Year's Eve coming up and the new year 2025. We, of course, will be with you as usual every week with 30 minutes of news and information from the world of radio here at CKUT in Montreal. My name's Sheldon. I'm here with Jill, and we have stories from outer space today to begin with, and some stories from the U.S. and a couple other things for you today. So we'll get started with Jill. He's got a space story.
So if you want to try your hand at decoding some slow scan television pictures, the amateur station on board the ISS is transmitting a series of 12 pictures over and over again until January the 5th. Of course, the first thing you need to know is when the International Space Station is above your city. One way to know this, well, you can go online to a website called Heavens Above, and there you could find that. When the International Space Station is above your city, well, you got to tune 145.800 megahertz. That's VHF in the 2-meter amateur radio band. So any scanner radio works. Even a handheld scanner will receive this signal. And of course, you've got to use software to decode. On Android, you can use software called Robot 36. On Windows, I use MMSSTV. There's also a slow scan TV app by Black Cat Systems for the iPhone, iPad. So several ways to decode these pictures. And you can get all 12 of them, send them in. We'll post a link to that. You can send them in, and in return, in January, you'll receive a certificate to let you know that you've actually received all 12 pictures.
How long would each transmission be? Because that satellite, like you said, or space station is going overhead, so the picture has to be transmitted in a window, I guess. How long would it take for a picture?
So the window itself, when the International Space Station gets above the horizon, is roughly 12 to 15 minutes. Each picture is 2 minutes long, and then there's a 2-minute off sequence, which means if you don't hear anything, you might be in that 2 minutes where it's not transmitting. You might have a lot of fun. It's easy to do.
All right, something kind of unique and a lot of fun to pick up something from outer space. So there you go. We'll bring you back down to Earth now, and a follow-up story that we did, last week or the week before. The radio stations in Maine that were owned by the author Stephen King, he was putting them up for sale. It was getting too costly to run them, and he was going to give them up. Well, someone has stepped forward and has taken over one of those stations. The story comes from Inside Radio, and the headline is Local Group Purchases Stephen King's WKIT-FM in Bangor, Maine. At least one of author Stephen King's radio stations will continue broadcasting in the new year, as a local group has been formed to acquire classic rock WKIT 100.3 FM in Bangor, Maine. Rock Lobster Radio LLC, formed by Jeff Solari and Greg Hawes, will assume station management via a local marketing agreement on January the 1st, 2025, as they wait for FCC approval of the company's purchase of the station. Terms of the deal were not disclosed, which was first reported by Bangor Daily News. We couldn't let it die. Hundreds, if not thousands, of people posted, called, and reached out when they heard the news that 100.3 was getting the plug pulled, the duo said in a statement. Longtime listeners were devastated, but now the grief can fade. The voices you love are staying right here. Solari is a market veteran who served as an anchor and reporter at WLBZ-TV in the 1990s. He also hosted afternoons at King's Classic Hits Z62 WZON 620 and worked at 92.9 The Ticket WEZQ. Solari operates Rock Lobster Entertainment, a sports and entertainment event company. Hawes and his brother own several Bangor area restaurants. After 41 years in the radio ownership business, King announced earlier this month that he would shut down WKIT, WZON, and alternative WZLO 103.1, saying he was feeling his 77 years and that it's time to get his business affairs in better order by closing the book on Zone Corporation and other stations he's personally kept afloat and on the air for all of these years. No word on whether any interested parties are willing to purchase the remaining 2 stations. So 1 out of 3 is all right. Keep one of them on the air with new owners, and good to see that they stepped in rather than just letting them fade away.
Yeah, definitely. It's better 1 than 0, and who knows what could happen with the 2 others. So we're going to have a little look back at the biggest radio stories of 2024. This is by Steve Knopper of Billboard. While there were radio success stories for individual artists in 2024, the industry's increasing decline was the dominant narrative. In 2024, radio gained a massive star, Shabuzi, thanks to an ambitious 5-format strategy by the Empire label to break a bar song, Tipsy, to the wildest possible audience. The singer-songwriter's signature track hit number 1 on Billboard Hot 100 in July and remained there for a record-tying 19 weeks, making radio history along the way. Shabuzi's triumph, along with Post Malone's surprisingly smooth crossover from pop and hip-hop to country, was among the few major radio success stories in 2024. The biggest story was the continuing decline of radio as an industry, although iHeartMedia and other radio giants point to rosy statistics. Showing radio's ongoing popularity, Music Watch surveys show the incidence of listening to music on broadcast radio dropped from 79% in the fourth quarter of 2016 to 50% in last year's fourth quarter. And while radio continues to reach 52% of music listeners, according to Music Watch, time spent listening has dropped from 5 hours a week in 2016 to 2 hours last year. Among the broadcasters laying off large number of employees, iHeartMedia, Odyssey, SiriusXM, and presumably author Stephen King's 3 long-running stations in Bangor, Maine, which punctuated the year in radio by announcing they would close December 31st. Major labels responded in kind, laying off numerous longtime promotion execs. As part of Billboard's look at 2024 in a variety of areas, from record labels to concert business, here are the year's biggest radio stories.
So we start with iHeart Media layoffs. The November layoffs which reportedly involved hundreds of employees, was one of the few downsizing waves by the number 1 broadcast company at its 860 stations. It's all part of the way the industry works, said iHeart CEO Bob Pittman on a third quarter conference call around the time of the layoffs, pointing to an increase in total revenue of more than $1 billion, a 5.3% jump compared to the same period in 2023.
Also, in our stories, morning show cuts. Over the summer, news of prominent local morning show stars losing their jobs arrived rapidly in both the U.S. and Canada. The hosts, popular local talent who had, in many cases, worked at their stations for years, often didn't see the cuts coming.
We continue with the really amazing story of Shabuzi and his 4-format milestone. In happier news, Empire, the indie label that broke Shabuzi, saw immediately that the Nigerian-American singer's track, A Bar Song Tipsy, which interpolates Jaquan's 2004 hip-hop hit Tipsy, would thrive on country radio. But Ghazi, the label's CEO, had grander ambitions, telling Billboard he planned all along to release the track to multiple radio formats at the same time. For a record like that, it's a no-brainer. The strategy worked. With the help of an indie promo company, Magnolia Music, the label pushed the song onto country playlists, then crossed it over to top 40. Finally, as a bar song started to show up on Shazam charts, Hot AC and regional rhythmic stations threw it on the air and received what Columbus, Ohio programmer Chris Harris told Billboard was a great response.
Another big story, Odyssey's bankruptcy. Bankruptcy was a lifeline for the number 2 broadcaster, which owns 230 stations, including heavyweights such as KROQ in Los Angeles and WCBS in New York. The January deal allowed the company to work with debt holders to reduce its debt from $1.9 billion to $350 million, or 80%. At first, early in 2024, the company declared that the Chapter 11 proceeding would not affect operations, but 3 months later, Odyssey announced it would reduce its workforce by less than 2%, which meant laying off a Boston sports reporter, a Chicago afternoon news anchor, and nearly 100 others. How many layoffs can they go through before there's nobody left?
Over at Sirius XM, there were struggles. It wasn't a great year for satellite radio either, as Sirius XM cut staff 3% in February, 11 months after slashing 8% of its workforce. The new layoffs affected 170 jobs out of 5,680 total employees. Jennifer Witz, the company's CEO, tried to spin the news positively in a staff memo. We have just begun to scratch the surface of what is possible here at Sirius XM, she wrote. While the company launched a free ad-supported subscription service in August to compete with AM/FM radio and streaming, the service lost 445,000 paid subscribers in the first quarter and 173,000 out of 33 million total in the second. To make matters worse, a New York judge ruled in November the company could no longer subject subscribers who want to cancel to a burdensome endurance contest involving speaking with an agent by phone and lengthy hold times. Looking ahead, the contract of the company's flagship star, 70-year-old Howard Stern, expires at the end of 2025. Will Stern renew, or will a flurry of new content deals involving popular podcasts like Smartless and Call Your Daddy make up the difference? We'll see. But already the company is pivoting. Just this week, it announced a new strategy to move away from its streaming app and double down on car subscribers. So a number of big things going on in the radio business, and we'll see the effect of a lot of these changes as we move into 2025.
Yep, lots of reorganizations for many, and it shows one thing. We're spreading out the content in too many different directions. And I think some are starting to think, yeah, maybe we need to refocus on our primary mandate, what we decided to do when we started, because we're maybe spreading it out too much now.
Next, we go to a story from Radio Inc. What's next for the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act? We've been following the progress of this story for many, many months now. The AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act's failure to advance this year may prove to be a temporary delay as supporters prepare to renew their efforts with new congressional leadership in 2025, as core changes may reinvigorate the Act's legislative journey. The Act, which would mandate automakers include AM in all their new vehicles due to its critical role in emergency communications, stalled under the current Senate majority, despite bipartisan backing and strong support from Senators Ed Markey and Ted Cruz. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has yet to bring the bill to the Senate floor for a vote since it passed out of committee in July 2023. Should the act restart its legislative process in the new Congress, optimism for its success may rise, with Republicans in control of the Senate. Prominent broadcast attorney Frank Montero recently shared his regulatory outlook with Radio Inc., saying, "I would feel optimistic about the AM Act's chances under a Republican-led Senate." The transition in Senate leadership also brings a key change in committee oversight. Senator Ted Cruz, who has championed the AM Act as ranking member of the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, is poised to ascend to chair. This shift could streamline the Act's progress, especially since Cruz's vocal support for AM radio. Then there is pledged support from President-elect Trump. On February 22nd, Trump publicly endorsed protecting AM radio during the National Religious Broadcasters International Christian Media Convention in Nashville, Tennessee. With Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell retiring after decades in leadership, South Dakota Senator John Thune will assume the role of Senate Majority Leader in the 119th Congress. At Radio Inc.'s Forecast 2025, NEB President Curtis Legite praised Thune's leadership and emphasized his proven commitment to broadcasters' priorities in Washington, saying Thune will be a tremendous leader. While the AM Act's future hinges on the changing political dynamics, broadcasters and supporters remain hopeful that new leadership in the Senate will provide a momentum needed to finally pass the measure. The 119th Congress will convene on January the 3rd, so just a few days away.
Hopefully, things are going to go and continue on the right direction. So what's happening with our sun? Well, our sun was pretty active. It has a lot of sunspots, including several that are capable of X-class solar flares. We thought we would have maybe some auroras on Christmas Day, but it didn't happen. So conditions remain rather quiet, but the solar activity is very high. Sunspot number 211 and the solar flux 256 as of this recording. So what's going to happen in the week ahead is to watch out for possible solar flares, as this could have an impact in our radio propagation. But conditions are great, and it's really, really fun to hear the 10-meter band full of activity in the daytime. So, of course, you've got to tune a radio and listen if you want to witness all of this.
For the latest news from the world of radio every Sunday morning at 10:30 on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal and online at ckut.ca.
In our next story, Trump's latest proposed plan could upset AM radio advocates. This is via Radio Inc. So we're kind of continuing in our AM radio stories here. In a post to X on December 13th, Trump stated the Republican Party will use its best efforts to eliminate daylight saving time, which has a small but strong constituency, but shouldn't. Daylight savings time is inconvenient and very costly to our nation. The proposal aligns with the sentiments of two key advisors, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who are stated to lead the forthcoming Department of Government Efficiency. However, confusion remains on whether Trump's intent is to abolish daylight savings time entirely or to make it permanent. His 2019 social media posts supporting permanent DST, making daylight savings time permanent is okay with me, suggests the latter. This interpretation aligns with a 2022 Senate bill, the Sunshine Protection Act, that sought to adopt daylight savings time year-round. While the bill passed unanimously in the Senate, it stalled in the House and was reintroduced in 2023 by Senator Marco Rubio, a Republican in Florida. Yet, not everyone agrees with making daylight savings time permanent. The National Religious Broadcasters, the largest association of Christian communicators, has long voiced strong opposition, citing potential harm to AM radio. In March, NRB urged lawmakers to reconsider the Sunshine Protection Act, arguing that permanent DST would destroy morning drive for AM stations. Due to FCC regulations, AM stations must reduce power after dark to avoid signal interference. Under permanent DST, sunrise would occur later during the winter months, forcing stations to operate at reduced power during morning hours, particularly from 6 to 8 a.m. This could lead to decreased audience reach during critical listening times and significant cuts to advertising revenue. The NRB emphasizes that AM radio plays a vital role in local communities, delivering religious programming, traffic updates, and emergency alerts. With over 120 AM stations among its members, the organization has urged lawmakers to carefully weigh the unintended consequences of permanent daylight savings time on broadcasters and their audiences. Indeed, that is something we don't think about, but changing that little part of daylight savings times, keeping our summertime, as we call it, permanent, would mean that it is dark later in the morning. In the summer, it's not too bad, but in the winter, it will show. So it will impact AM radio for sure.
Yeah, you blanketly announce that you want to make some changes, and you really wonder how much they've looked into the effect on so many different things. This is one that, probably nobody thought about other than the people who are going to be affected by it. So, people make laws and pass bills and don't always think about everybody that it touches. And this seems to be a classic example. So we'll have to wait and see where it goes. But at least the complaint has been laid out there for them now, so they know that there's at least one group not in favor of it. We stay with some more news out of Washington. Lots going on down there, and there'll be a lot more coming in the new year for sure. Kari Lake says she has no intention of turning the Voice of America into Trump TV. This comes from WTOP-FM in Washington and CBS News, all via Radioworld. Kari Lake says it's not her intention to turn the government-funded news outlet Voice of America into MAGA TV, but that she wants to see a return to politically neutral journalism. I'm sure they're doing some great stuff already. I've been looking a little bit here and there, Lake said in an interview with CBS News Saturday. I'm not here to make it Trump TV or MAGA TV. That's not what it's about. That's not what Voice of America is. Lake, a former broadcast journalist who unsuccessfully ran for governor and for a U.S. Senate seat in Arizona, is President-elect Donald Trump's selection to head the international broadcaster. Voice of America, which is part of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, broadcasts news internationally in 49 languages on radio, television, and online to an audience of an estimated 354 million people per week, according to its website. It is run by an independent federal agency. Lake on Saturday was sharply critical of non-conservative media outlets during remarks on stage at America Fest, a political gathering in Phoenix hosted by the far-right group Turning Point USA, saying the fake news, the mainstream media, has just become obsolete. They're good for one thing, she told the crowd. They're kind of like a barometer. If you see the fake news attacking someone, what you should do is say, I've got to support that person. In an interview later Saturday, she told CBS News she'd like to ensure VOA staff have the resources to be the incredible journalists that they're meant to be. Asked about her plans for changes to the newsroom, Lake said, well, I need to get in there and see what's going on. She then indicated she wants to expand its coverage. We're talking to the world through Voice of America, she said, and I want to actually put more coverage out there, more product out there, if you will, more broadcasting, and make sure that they're doing really quality, top-notch broadcasting and focus on great journalism, asking questions and making sure that the journalists know that they're independent journalists. Lake responded to concerns by some that she might politicize the news organization by saying she doesn't care if the reporters are Democrats or Republicans, but whether they can set aside their opinions. I've never met anybody. They can say they're neutral, but I've never really met anybody that has not formed beliefs, Lake said. It's natural. It's normal. Can you, as a journalist, check this while you're covering the news to put out a fair and accurate assessment? And so that's what I'm going to be pushing for. Lake disclosed that she thinks people will realize she's not the person the corporate media has described. Sometimes I feel like I have to go when I meet people to prove I don't have horns coming out of my head because the corporate mainstream media has done such a dishonest number on me, she said. And that's one thing that I can relate to a lot with President Trump. We've had just the worst stuff said about us. Lake also acknowledged that Trump can't unilaterally appoint her to the position. The decision lies with a bipartisan board that would have to remove the current director and approve the new one. Voice of America reported last week that its current director, Mike Abramowitz, said in an email to staff that he welcomed a smooth transition of power. So, very powerful voice to the rest of the world. How is it going to be changed? Will it be changed? And how drastically?
Yeah, definitely. And, journalists are supposed to be impartial and fair in every way.
Something to look forward to in 2025 with so many other things that we'll be watching.
So we have upcoming ham radio contests.
We are back to normal. All of the seasonal things are out of the way, I guess. And so some of the regular contests returning for 2025, starting with the Slovenian Radio Club organizing their worldwide Peace Messenger City contest, 1200 Zulu January 4th to 1200 Zulu January the 5th. There are 119 designated peace messenger cities in the world. The idea of the contest is to promote contacts between stations and operators, which are residents of the town or suburb of the peace messenger cities, PMC, or members of radio clubs or contest clubs or DX associations, which are located in peace messenger cities and the rest of the world. It runs from 160 through 10 meters. It's both CW and SSB.
There's the ARRL RTTY Roundup, 1800 Zulu January 4th to 2359 Zulu January 5th, organized by the American Radio Relay League. It's 80 through 10 meters, and it's radio teletype only.
The American Radio Relay League is organizing the Kids Day, January 4th, 1800 to 2359 Zulu. Twice a year, ARRL offers an event designed to promote amateur radio to our youth. Share the excitement with your kids or grandkids, a scout troop, a church, or the general public. The bands are 80 through 10 meters, including work bands, and it is all modes.
The European CW Association is having its 160-meter contest, 20 hours Zulu January 4th to 0700 hours January 5th. Bands, 160 meters, and it's CW only. And so, we're out of time.
We are finished for 2024, ready to move into 2025 next week. We hope you will stay with us and join us in the new year. If you want to reach us by email, it is radioreport@yahoo.com. We are live streaming and archived at ckut.ca. Our Facebook group has a couple new members. We welcome Shenzhen in China and Mike in France joining us. We invite you to log on and join the Facebook group. And our YouTube channel, always popular. You can go and listen to any of our shows in your convenient time. And you can find it at youtube.com/@IRR. You can subscribe as well. And finally, our X account is at IRRCKUT, where you can follow us there. So have a great end of the year. Happy New Year to everyone. We'll talk to you again on the first Sunday of the new year, 2025, next week here on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in the city of Montreal. Bye-bye for now.
Happy New Year.
This is Trans World Radio, broadcasting from the sunshiny island of Bonaire in the Netherlands Antilles. the international sound of the Caribbean.